Planet-S, I hope I'm saying that right, is a 2003 spacefaring drama from Studio Sunrise and director Goro Taniguchi. And boy, is it some socialist propaganda, I'll tell you what. Set in the near future, Planet-S follows a group of wage slave laborers, debris haulers, whose job it is to clear all the junk out of Earth's orbit to ensure safe space travel for everyone else. Our leads are the naive young Ai Tanabe, the fresh recruit for her company's criminally underfunded and understaffed debris section, and her jaded senpai Hachiroro Hoshino, who really needs to take a chill pill. Throughout Ai's stint as a debris hauler, she and her co-workers will struggle with all sorts of socio-political and economic injustices while trying to make their way in the world, all while sparks of perhaps naive idealism and hope see humanity reaching further for the stars than it ever has dared. In other words, Planet-S pretty much says fuck capitalism, and I am here for it. There's three primary lenses from which we can view this show. The genre lens, from which we see how Planet-S envisions the not-so-distant future, the socio-political lens through which much of the world's larger issues are framed, and a surprise lens, which we'll get to at the end. The middle one is going to be the most substantive, but let's take this one at a time. First, we can look at Planet-S as a piece of science fiction. Science fiction is rarely a genre used to predict exactly what the future will look like, but rather through imagining what the future could look like. Science fiction acts as a lens through which one can examine the issues any given science fiction story frames at the time in which they were written. While it's pretty clear that replicants aren't going to be a part of our future anytime soon, Blade Runner is nonetheless a poignant commentary on the dehumanizing effects of rampant and uncontrolled commercialism, so sci-fi doesn't have to be real to feel real. And yet Planet-S does go out of its way to feel not just realistic, but probable, while also providing all that sweet commentary sci-fi is known for. It earns the label hard sci-fi because it introduces us to its world through what is likely to become a very real problem in the near future should space travel become common. Debris. Just a little scrap of metal flying through the sky can tear a whole ship apart, and Earth's orbit is already littered with garbage. Thus, by taking a real problem and providing us with a believable, if not likely, solution, that being unpaid laborers having to pick it up all manually, the mere opening and premise of Planet-S primes us to expect a grounded affair that has something to say about humanity's future. And I love me a good grounded sci-fi show, with The Expanse being a recent favorite of mine. So pretty much right from the get-go, this show had its hooks in me, and the meat of the thing is still to come. Not only does the show take a grounded approach to its science fiction, but so too does it take the same approach to the social, political, and economic crises that plague its near future and motivate much of the show's action. Profiteering, corporate greed, and wealth inequality are all issues at the heart of the narrative. This is evident from the very first episode. Not only is Ai's debris section, which performs work that is vital for space travel and thus the conducting of trade and other business outside the atmosphere, criminally underfunded due to it not being explicitly profitable in the short term, but its staff are underpaid and undervalued, trapping them in a cycle of poverty and dependency on the company that sticks its nose up at them.
Look, even if there's no money in it, it's still an important job that needs to be done.
Hell, they're given so little thought that the company can't even shill out for formal training, which, you know, you'd think would be important. On Ai's first day on the job, she's sent out into space to pick up crap without any preparation. Just shut up and get out there and do your job, wage slave.
So we're really going out into space, huh?
Well, we can't do our job if we don't go out into the field.
But I just got here today. I don't know anything about... Ah! Somebody help me!
So many of the obstacles Ai and debris section face are motivated by that classic corporate greed: maximize profits, minimize expenditures at the cost of all that is good and decent. It's all too obvious that these moves are dumb and bad on the corporation's part. Ensuring safety might cost them some short-term revenue, sure, but the cost of potential damages incurred by space debris far outweigh the costs of making sure those damages never happen to begin with. That much is made evident when the show's very first scene shows one loose screw destroying a passenger shuttle in orbit, costing countless lives. Given all of that, the obvious human action would be to do everything possible to prevent that sort of tragedy from happening again, but, and I cannot stress this enough, corporations are not human. They don't see the value of lives, they just see numbers and immediate profit. And when weighing the cost of human lives and potential financial losses as a result of a theoretical accident, which they can spend money to definitely prevent, versus the losses incurred by preventing those theoretical accidents with no immediate financial benefits, what do you think's gonna happen? Profit overall, of course. profit overall. And in case that seems cartoonish or ridiculous, remember that I'm speaking from a country that had a robust pandemic response plan in place that could have saved money and lives in the event of such a disaster, before along came a new leader in the form of an annoying orange who decided to run said country like a business and throw out that very plan because it wouldn't have been profitable, I guess. And now over 500,000 of that country's citizens have died from just such a pandemic, so, fuck all of that. So anyway, the capitalist status quo of Planetes drives many of the conflicts throughout the show, between characters, between larger political forces, and in intersections between those two elements. On the larger global political scale, one of the major driving forces of the narrative is a terrorist plot, which seeks to sabotage the first manned mission to Jupiter, and in general mess up humankind's current exploitation of space. And by humankind's exploitation, what I actually mean is the monopolization of space by first world countries and megacorporations, the culmination of greedy and exploitative policies, which has ultimately resulted in third world countries on Earth devolving into mass poverty and civil wars and all that generally terrible stuff. Corporations exploiting poor labor conditions in third world countries to maximize their own profits at the cost of human lives? Wow, what a novel and unheard of science fiction concept! Planetes, quite importantly, forces us to contend with these larger conflicts through characters that are introduced and fleshed out outside the context of those conflicts. If you want to show the human cost of capitalism, sure, it's easy to throw numbers and statistics at the screen, wax poetic about all the inhumane acts and subsequent destruction, but if you really want to grab the viewer's heart, what you've got to do is have a character directly suffer from all those consequences, and that's why the character of Claire Rondo is so important to the narrative. It's through her that we truly get to understand just how awful the state of the world is, despite all the technological advancement. Claire Rondo hails from one of those struggling third world countries, but we don't know that at first. At the start, all we know is that she's a hard-working member of the company's control section. She's quite stern and serious all the time, in stark contrast to the relatively laid-back and goofy personnel of the debris section.
Let me see to the report, sir.
But you're overseeing all the shipping related to the Tandem Mirror project.
Yes, I can handle it. Let me take care of it, sir.
All right. I will leave the matter in your hands.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, at debris section...
How many times do I have to tell you to eat your damn vegetables?
Oh, come on, Sensei!
She works hard and strives for advancement out of pride for her heritage, a desire to prove herself and her people as just as deserving of space as the rest of humanity. But sadly, with capitalism and corporate greed naturally comes a heavy dose of racism. As one writer put it, racist policies so completely saturated and shaped capitalist policies today that they cannot really be separated except in isolated cases. There is only racist capitalism or capitalist racism. Just as modern American capitalism is built from a foundation of and inexorably interwoven with racism, so too do racist and bigoted views and policies in Planetes serve to prop up the already wealthy while further pushing the struggling into the dirt. In the show, this manifests for Claire as injustices perpetrated against herself and her homeland. No matter how hard she works, no matter how successful or unsuccessful she is in her job, she can never advance beyond her current position. All of her superiors and upper management only ever see her as a hick from that backwater country, a lesser being to be worked and tossed out with the rest of the garbage. This was a reality that she was probably denying for a long time, but when a fellow countryman made the trip up to her station to try to sell a new spacesuit developed in their country for the purpose of bringing their country into the new age, she could no longer deny reality. This is what starts her down the path that leads her to extreme measures. Her fellow countryman from episode 11 just wants to help his people succeed and has gone through extraordinary lengths and effort to do so. But now that he's finally made it to space and puts in the effort to sell his invention and help his people, what happens? Racism, of course. All of the companies he visits pretty much laugh at him and slam the door in his face.
None of them will take anything produced in a country like El Tanica seriously.
And when he gets to Claire's company, the higher-ups, of course, laugh at him and hoist him off on Claire to follow some safety testing procedures before planning to kick him out anyway, no matter the results.
Take care of this, will you, Claire?
Huh?
Adoption testing for a spacesuit. Go through the motions and show him out. Over there.
Because he's just a lowlife from one of those backwards third-world countries. No way a spacesuit made there could possibly be any good, right? Not like the ones made in the good old US of A, am I right? They wouldn't be humoring him at all if it weren't for company policy. So Claire and Debris Section take the man's suit through all sorts of tests, and wouldn't you know, it holds up. Passes all the safety regulations and jazz. It works. It's viable. It's sellable. Not like the company guys were gonna buy it anyway, but still, now it's official. There's hope. With the suit proven viable, finding a willing buyer suddenly became possible. Not likely, but still better than nothing. Except before anyone can celebrate, the space police show up and take Claire's countryman into custody, not because he did anything wrong, but because his country erupted into civil war. Gee, the local military power taking into custody innocent people whose only crime is having been born in or have family from a country which is currently doing a war that's beyond their control? Why does that sound fucking familiar? So yeah, Claire gets pretty pissed about the injustice of it all, and from there it's only a downward spiral. Eventually she gets demoted to debris section, ostensibly because she's been falling behind in her work, but in reality it's probably, well, do I need to spell it out? She's humiliated at the hands of managers that look down on her, all while their actions lead to the further disenfranchisement and suffering of her people.
They're all companies in developing countries, right? We'll never place any orders with them.
So, Into's business only goes to members of the First World Club. I guess some things never change.
And eventually she feels left with no choice but to join the larger movement, kickstarting the terrorist plot that serves as the show's multi-episode finale. The plot itself being a pushback against all the injustices we've seen carried out by the greedy corporations and megalomaniacs that have monopolized space, made all too real to us when we're forced to view them from the perspective of a woman who directly suffers the consequences. Unfortunately, not everything about Planetes works, which is made apparent when examining some of the character beats through a, and plug your ears gamers, I'm about to use the bad word, feminist lens. And I don't know who needs to hear this, but just in case, the goal of applying this lens to media is not to mindlessly attack a work as seems to be a common belief, but rather to examine how media portrayals of sex and gender inform and so often fail our understanding of those topics. And in case all of that went over your head, here, let me make it easy for you. Yes, I most definitely am the SJW police here to censor your anime titties or whatever. Fear me. Grr. So, how do we apply this lens to Planetes? By examining the motivations, actions, and resolutions for the show's two leads, Ai Tanabe and Hachirota Hoshino. In short, while Hachi is primarily self-motivated, independently chasing personal goals such as owning a spaceship and joining the Jupiter expedition, in so doing asserting his manly independence or whatever, after a point, Ai becomes almost entirely motivated by and dependent on a man. That man being the one she's in love with, Hachi, which seems especially gross given that she started the series strong-willed, fierce, and independent, only to be fucking domesticated by, air quotes, the right man, which he is not, by the way. He always treats her terribly, FYI. The series ends with Hachi in pursuit of his personal dreams, embarking on a 7-year expedition, leaving behind Ai, who is now his wife, grounded and pregnant at his mother's home. There are not enough deadbeat dad memes in the world to convey how not okay this is. Just what is this communicating? What message is being sent by having the show's protagonist, a passionate young woman, suddenly discard all independence to become completely dependent on a man who cannot be said to truly love her, and abandon her career to live the life of a domestic housewife while her husband abandons her and their child to go on a dangerous expedition for the better part of a decade? Sure, ladies, the show says, you can get a job for now, but don't expect to keep it. Remember, it's your duty to get married and quit your job so you can be a housewife and dutifully serve your husband. That's just gross, right? And what's more, it's hypocritical, because all the socioeconomic and political issues that we've discussed, and feminism, they're all intersectional. Capitalism and the pursuit of profits and endless growth, they're built on a foundation of racism, yes, but also sexism. Any excuse to benefit those in power, make the rich richer by putting down everyone else, and those higher offices and positions of power have historically been dominated by men, favoring other men and keeping their power to themselves. To recognize the injustices of capitalism, one must recognize all the people that the system fails. And it's hypocritical on the part of Planetes to recognize the injustices against one group, only to then peddle a trite, regressive narrative with another. And it's important that we recognize when a piece of media does that, because, to again quote someone much smarter than me, media texts are made in contexts that articulate with the current dimensions of power and ideology. And these are beyond the making of individuals, but such texts remain cultural forms whose meanings are neither real nor unreal, but made, constructed. In other words, Planetes recognizes and portrays a spacefaring version of our current male-dominated capitalist culture while failing to recognize and critique half of what it portrays. And hell, even Claire isn't safe from this. Cool as she is, she's still ultimately pushed into the terrorist plot by a man she's close with. But hey, at least Fee's a cool smoker chick, so it all balances out, right? That was sarcasm. Real talk though, the episode about Fee's misadventures just trying to get a smoke, mwah, best one. Love that shit.
It's such a wonderful thing to be alive, don't you think?
Whatever!
Anyway, yeah, so that's Planetes. A pretty fun, hard sci-fi show that really went and said fuck capitalism while unfortunately not being able to 100% follow through with that thesis. I appreciate what it managed to get right, and there's a lot to love about it aside from what we've discussed, especially regarding its unique presentation and endearing supporting cast, but still, that editing leaves a lot to be desired. Thanks for sitting through my rambling about a space cartoon. Please hop in the comments to let me know what you thought. I'm sure this comment section will be interesting. Please stay tuned on this channel. I've got an upcoming video about Wandering Witch to be released soon, which will only be slightly less contentious. Also, this was a viewer's choice video in which you, the viewer, vote for my next video topic. Check the description for more on that. Thanks again for watching, and don't forget to be gay and do crimes.